The high plains to the northwest of Johannesburg have been called the cradle of humankind. In the 1930s and 40s, fossil finds here gave us the first important glimpses of our earliest ancestors. The fossil record suggests that in that gap lies the dawn of humanity, the birth of the genus Homo. It's perhaps the least understood and most important episode in our evolution. Before it was the world of Australopithecus, an ape-like creature with a tiny brain. The fossil record suggests that somewhere between 2 and 3 million years ago, these ape-like Australopiths evolved into the first recognizably human species, Homo erectus.
They have big brains and small faces, adaptations for using tools.
On September the 13th, 2013, Rick and Steve decided to look into a cave system they thought they knew well. It's called Rising Star.
Followed a skull in the ground. And finally, one of the most interesting ones is the mandible, with 4 teeth in it.
They took pictures and decided to show them to Pedro.
And I will never forget when he came to me with the photos, put it on the computer, and the first thing I noticed was the jaw with the teeth. And I realized this is definitely a hominin.
Pedro says, "You're really gonna want to let me in." They flipped open a computer, and I saw something I don't think I ever dreamed I would see on a computer screen.
When his shock faded, Lee immediately turned his mind to the question of what type of hominin this might be. The team was able to radioactively date the limestone layers in the cave with great precision. The layer containing the Sediba skeletons was 1.97 million years old. That makes these creatures among the last of their kind, living right at the end of the fossil gap between Australopiths and Homo erectus. They might also prove or disprove a highly influential theory about the dawn of humanity. A theory inspired by the very first discovery of an Australopith fossil. The year is 1924. Anatomist Raymond Dart teaches at the University of the Witwatersrand in Johannesburg.
Well, in the late 19th century, fossils were found in Europe with the Neanderthals. They were found in Asia with the earliest known examples of Homo erectus. No one really had a sense that anything interesting occurred in Africa.
Darwin and Huxley predicted that our origins would be in Africa based on comparative anatomy. You know, they looked at the skeletons of chimps and gorillas, and they looked at ours, and they went, well, they're so close to us, and they're more close than anything else, so it must have been in Africa. And then the sort of second generation of evolutionary biologists shied away from that. They started to find fossils in Europe, they started to find fossils in Asia, and of course that tied in very nicely with sort of racist, imperialistic thoughts of the day. They couldn't abide the thought of it being in Africa.
In late 1924, Raymond Dart receives a package. He sees it's from the mining town of Tong in South Africa's Northwest Province.
And in that box is a fossil. And this is a game-changing fossil.
It's been sent to him by miners who noticed what looks like the skull of a small ape encased in the rock. Dart is fascinated. he begins the long, laborious process of revealing the mysterious skull. He can see that it is the skull of a child, but like no child he has ever seen before. It has ape-like characteristics, but also some very human ones.
And so as he cleaned this fossil and he saw the hole on the bottom of the skull where the spinal cord enters the brain underneath, that he had something like a two-legged walker on his hands, and this he named Australopithecus africanus. And what that means is southern human of Africa.
Dart rushed into print with his find. He claimed it was proof that we evolved in Africa, just as Darwin had predicted. He was unprepared for the firestorm his theory unleashed.
The Tong child sparked an incredible revolution. Up to that point, everyone said, let's look to Europe for our ancestor. It was unthinkable that anything as important as the emergence of humans could have happened in Africa.
Most scientists disagreed with him. He really was seen as an outsider, but it absolutely set the ball rolling for one, paleoanthropology as a field in Africa, and two, vindication of what Darwin and Huxley had predicted with actual fossil evidence. It showed once and for all that our origins were in Africa and only in Africa, and that's huge. It totally changed the field.
Raymond Dart was building a theory about how the Australopiths, our ape-like ancestors, became human. His ideas about the dawn of humanity were the touchstone for thinking about our origins for generations.
In the 1940s, more examples of Australopithecus began to be found. And a key site not only had fragments of Australopithecus, but also the bones of many other fossil animals. And Dart noted that these bones were broken in a special way.
Dart became convinced they were weapons made by our primitive ancestors. Was this the key to what first made us human? Dart had been a young medic in World War I. He had seen firsthand the barbarity humans are capable of. It made sense to him that the origins of humanity were steeped in blood.
Raymond Dart's experience in the World War may have colored his interpretation of what these bones and teeth meant. You know, it gave him a view of sort of the dark side of humanity and the violence of humanity. And he came up with this idea that Australopithecus had figured out that bones and teeth were hard and could be used as weapons to kill other animals. This sort of killer ape theory of early humans.
Dart believed that the more aggressive and adventurous of our ape-like ancestors abandoned their forest environments and moved into savannas. There, they became hunters and predators. His theory that this violent transformation gave rise to humanity soon found an audience far beyond the small world of paleoanthropology.
In the 1950s, there was a drama critic and playwright named Robert Ardrey who became very interested in human origins. And he went to Africa and spoke with Raymond Dart, and Robert Ardrey, being a dramatist, could write like anything, and he wrote this amazing book published in 1961 called African Genesis.
African Genesis became a pop science publishing sensation of the early 1960s. Ardrey's ideas, building on those of Raymond Dart, helped frame public debate about the dawn of humanity for the next 20 years.
The very first sentence in that book, I remember it because I read it as a teenager and was enthralled by it. Not in innocence and not in Asia was mankind born. And in that one sentence, he encapsulated Raymond Dart's ideas, that it was an African genesis and that where we came from was not from an innocent creature, but from the most violent of killer apes.
One of Robert Ardrey's greatest fans was the filmmaker Stanley Kubrick. At the time, he was planning a film based on the science fiction novel 2001, A Space Odyssey. It was to be a meditation on human technology run wild. At the beginning of the film, our ancestors discover the first technology.
And so this sets up then for Kubrick the same conflict that Dart felt. For Dart, that first weapon explained the emergence of human beings, while at the same time it explained the atrocities of the 20th century.
Are we killer apes at heart? Is this what we will discover about our ancestors at the dawn of humanity? The discoveries at Malapa may finally provide evidence to support or refute Raymond Dart's theory. The Sediba skeletons are so well preserved, they give the scientists a unique glimpse into their lives. Whether they were so-called killer apes or not can be seen in what they ate. The first direct evidence comes from their teeth. Just like the tartar dentist removed from our teeth, the calculus from Sediba's teeth provides a snapshot of what they were eating. Amanda can see what Sediba was eating when she discovers phytoliths, the microscopic remains of plants.
Well, this is a phytolith that we recovered from the calculus of the Sediba individuals. And we have a couple of examples here, all from different plants that this individual ate.
What Amanda can see trapped in Sediba's tartar are microscopic remains of many different plants.
We have phytoliths from grasses. We have phytoliths from the bark or woody tissue of plants. And we have phytoliths possibly from fruits. So all the evidence suggests that the foods that this individual was eating were coming from closed forested regions. So eating fruits, maybe chewing on stems, eating the grasses that are growing in that area.
The tooth evidence from Sediba indicates a diet very similar to today's chimpanzees. While they may have eaten some meat, there's little to back up Raymond Dart's theory that they were killer apes.
So later scientists came and looked at the evidence and found that there were tooth marks in the skull of an Australopithecus individual. And that was just really compelling evidence that Australopithecus, maybe instead of being the predator, was the prey.
So our ancestors, or the early hominins in South Africa, were the victims rather than being the carnivores that Raymond Dart wanted them to be. The caves in which he was finding not only the remains of human ancestors, but the remains of many, many, many other animals, which he thought were being consumed and devoured by our ancestors, were actually all the victims of predators and carnivores who were pulling all of those animals into the cave.
It seems Raymond Dart's vision of our ancestors as the first killer apes, so famously portrayed by Stanley Kubrick, was wrong. As everybody goes home, the rising star fossils are carefully transported to the University of the Witwatersrand. It was here, 90 years ago, that Raymond Dart sparked a firestorm by declaring that the dawn of humanity was in Africa. As the analysis goes on, the bones from the Rising Star Cave are finally ready to be presented to the world.
We've got a new species of early human in the genus Homo, and that's tremendously exciting. We've never had anything in that transition period between the late Australopiths and the earliest members of our genus in any kind of abundance, and boy, we have it in abundance now.
Many scientists now believe that a key element of that transition was the growth of ever stronger cooperation and social bonds. Psychologist Michael Tomasello has spent a lifetime comparing the social behavior and capacities of chimpanzees and human children.
Well, there's social and there's ultra-social, and all mammals are social to some degree. Great apes are especially social in the sense that they form long-term relationships with others and have bonding relationships with others, and they groom, they support each other in fights. So they're very highly social creatures. But a lot of it is organized around competition. So a lot of it is organized around coalitions to fight over food and so forth. And in humans, we of course haven't lost our selfish and competitive streak, but we've become so much more cooperative. Not perfectly cooperative, but much more cooperative.
The fact that we can sit in an airplane with 300 or 400 individuals of breeding age that we aren't related to and not rip each other apart is a uniquely human character, and it was evolved on this landscape behind me, because Africa is a harsh place, and we as early humans had to evolve cooperation in order to survive here. We didn't have big canines and sharp claws. We just had each other.
Humans are the most highly social primates ever to walk the earth. We bond and form relationships far more complex than any other primate.